I'm so excited to have you here, Chetan. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm very excited to be here with you, Jesse. So this is great.
Hello, hello, and welcome to the Success Sessions interview series. Today, I'm so honored to have my friend and one of my teachers and mentors, Chetan Parkyn, who is my go-to human design expert. And I feel so excited that I can say that. We were just speaking about this, that human design has become so mainstream that I can just refer to that. And most people watching this are going to be like, yeah, I know what that is. But if you don't, Chetan is the perfect person to learn about it from. He is the person that I learned about it from. I had heard people talking about human design and I was just kind of poo-pooing it. I don't need any more of this information about myself, but there was something about Chetan that was the real deal. And I booked a session with him. We had a deep dive and I learned so much, not only about myself, but about human beings. And I think that that's really part of what attracts me to human design, is that it's not just like me. Of course we could do that. It's really like it informs what I understand about everyone that I know in my life. So I'm so excited to have you here, Chetan. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm very excited to be here with you, Jesse. So this is great.
Yeah. I want to start out this interview just by asking you kind of a more personal question, which is how I start all of these interviews, which is how you defined success as a child and how you were wrong.
It's a question that could go in many different directions. But what I found myself being funneled towards, if I could say it like that, growing up in the kind of middle class in England, I was funneled towards getting a job or getting a profession. It wasn't, it was almost like I let the just river carry me into that. And I ended up qualified as a mechanical engineer. And for somebody who's totally right brain like I am, dealing with mechanical and logical stuff, I had a very different way of going about it. But I was good at it, I was successful at it until a point in time when I hit the wall. Mm. I'd been practicing and troubleshooting engineering all around the world, all kinds of different jobs, North Sea oil pipelines, underwater, yacht delivery. I'd done trips through Asia. I'd just finished a 6-month safari through Africa. I mean, fabulous trip. And I hit the wall. Like everything I'd done in my life just didn't add up to anything. I'd had all these amazing experiences, done all the right things, apparently. And life just wasn't making sense. So I was 27 years old and I realized this wasn't doing it for me.
Wow. Yeah. And what happened when you had that realization? What changed?
I knew I needed help. I knew I needed some guidance. I needed somebody to be able to tell me, what's the bigger picture here? What is it more about me that I've missed completely going through the obvious steps? And I was guided. I was literally guided to have a reading with this man in what is now Mumbai. Used to be Bombay in those days in India. Amazing man. And, he went through this system, a system where he literally was able to read from a page in a book, one of hundreds of different books that he had. He read one page that somebody had written down about 3,000 years ago that was all about me.
Wow.
And he started off, so many lifetimes ago this, another few lifetimes ago that, and last week, this week, next week, parents' names, where you live, what you grew up doing, all that stuff. It's like, wow. And he gets to the end of the reading and he says, you're going to be doing the same work I'm doing. He actually wanted me to work with him because he said, you know how to do this stuff? I didn't know diddly about it. I was a retiring mechanical engineer, apparently. I didn't know it. And, when I said, I can't possibly do that, he just cracked up laughing. He thought it was really funny, like I told a great joke. Because he could see where my life was going. And I said, I can't do this. He said, it doesn't matter. You're going to do this work anyhow. And he said, get ready, because there's a new system that's going to come into your life. You're going to write books about it. You're going to introduce it all over the world. You're going to help people find out who they are, and it's going to change their lives forever. This was 1979. So I didn't know what he was talking about, but it made a big impact. And, human design didn't actually come into being until 8 years later. And it came into,
Really?
yeah, in 1987, human design came into being. And then 1993, I met the person to whom human design was given. And I studied with him every year, twice a year. I'd fly to wherever he was and do his trainings. And I knew
So,
right away, this is the system. This is what this man in India told me about. So,
well, and I mean, this is the 40th anniversary of that reading in India. So
yes,
what a culmination.
yeah.
I'm so honored. For those people who are tuning in and don't already know what human design is, can you describe it?
It's a 21st century self-remembering device. So it's an objective system. We've all gone through schooling and we've all been told who we are and what we're about. And, you know, you're somebody's child, you're somebody's work for person, you know, you're a good person, you're a bad person, whatever. We've taken in all kinds of input from all kinds of different people. The thing about human design is objective. It tells you who you are, and or at least it tells you the vehicle that you're going to be in this lifetime, and it tells you how to run that vehicle to the best effect. So it's a huge thing. There's nothing even vaguely like it anywhere on the planet. And it's exactly for these times, you know, because we absolutely need to find out who we are and what we're up to here at the moment.
Yes.
Because nobody else is going to tell us, you know, in this age of fake news and all this nonsense that's going around the place, we have to recognize, what am I doing here, you know, and how to go about it.
One of the things that has stood out to me, so in my experience, people compare human design to astrology or Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or some kind of, you know, like these other tools for self-discovery, sort of, when you let someone else tell you who you are. And for me, I just was never interested in those things beyond the experience of someone telling me about myself, which was always kind of pleasurable.
A lot of fun.
But I never really remembered this stuff, and I never learned anything about anyone else in those systems. And when I started hearing people tell me about human design, it was like an avalanche, you know, like something tipped, and all of a sudden I was hearing about it from left and right. And the theme of what everyone said that was the same was that it freed them to work on the things that they could change and stop working on the things that they couldn't.
That's a beautiful way of saying it, Jesse. Yes, exactly that. There is a huge relaxation when you realize, oh goodness, this is me and this is how it works for me. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, and I experienced that once you and I started working together. It was such a shift in understanding. I love the way you language that we're in a particular vehicle. We kind of have to learn how to drive it. You know, it's like they're not all vehicles are the same. And I also got really early on that it's not like some people get Lamborghinis and some people get Toyota Corollas. It's like all the vehicles are equally amazing, yes, but they're different.
They're different, yes. That's the point. So there is no one size fits all, which again fits with the whole way the universe operates. No duplicates.
Mm-hmm.
No two people are living the same life, you know, so how on earth can you categorize yourself along with some kind of a system or some kind of a belief pattern? You know, everybody's living their own life, and that's the beauty of human design. It puts you on spot in your own life.
So I feel like we're kind of talking around it, but I want to hear your explicit definition. Now, at this stage in your life, having lived the fulfillment of this vision that was given to you and that you claimed, how do you define success now?
Well, it's in the interactions I have with people. The books that he told me about in 1979, you know, now it's a 40th anniversary from that reading in 1979, but the first book came out in 2009. I had to wait 30 years for this.
Wow.
But it's now in 14 languages. It's going gangbusters in all kinds of different parts of the world. It's just fabulous to watch.
Yes.
The Italian and French versions just came out in the last month. So
congratulations.
Hey, what to say? It's my little baby, but she's doing very nicely.
Yes.
And then the other two books, they're going out as well. They're, you know, people are just picking up on these things, that somehow there's something coming through that really touches them.
Yes.
So the success now for me is having the delight of watching the books do their thing. We have a lot of people come to our website because we give people free reports. We have free software. We have a free app that everyone can use. So everyone can start doing their own play with it. And I also have the great joy of traveling around the world and doing classes and teaching people
Mm.
about the system and reintroducing people to themselves and watching people light up,
Mm-hmm.
just in telling them even the simplest things. And, I've been working with this now, what, 20 some years. I've, you know, 10,000 plus readings, and I've learned an awful lot from the people I've read for. So the readings I gave, 10, 15 years ago, they're not what happens today. I actually watch people light up today, and I give them clues to be able to hold what it is that I've told them in a way that works for them. That they can actually start interacting in their own life in a way that is growthful. Instead of
Yes.
having to put up with stuff, they actually find themselves expanding more and more into their own life. And this, to me, this is just a most beautiful gift I've been given.
Are we all given a gift like this?
Yes, we are. We are all gifted. And that you bring that up at the moment, the transits, because the planets don't sit still, the planets keep moving and they keep energizing different parts of our nature. Right now, there's configurations going on in the human design chart where everybody on this planet has to find their own truth. So the idea of going along with somebody else's concepts or what we learned in school or what we learned in church or wherever we were, we really have to realize, does this resonate with me? Or am I still going along with somebody else's description of what they thought life was all about?
The question that's coming up for me is, it feels edgy, but very important, which is, in my experience, I can do that same thing that you're describing, where I kind of give my power away and let someone else tell me my truth. I can do that with a human. I can do that with a parent. I can do that with a lover. I can do it with a teacher. I can do it with you. And so I hear the distinction that you're making, that human design is an objective system, but my experience is that I can still play that old pattern with human design or with you as a teacher. And I'm curious how you negotiate that.
Well, when I teach people human design, and I do classes all over the world, I do them online as well. What I'm very clear with people about is, look, I'm going to tell you the basics, going to tell you how this thing works, but you have to make the system your own. Right? You have to find your own way of expressing this and experiencing it from your own point of view, from your own unique perspective. I'm absolutely crystal clear about that. This is not a religion. This is not a, you can't live your life according to a system. You have to live your life according to your own truth. It's an inside job. So the human design shows you, what the bits and pieces of it are. But in the end, your experience, what you're going to do with it. And it's a very valid point, this thing of giving our power away. Because let's look at it. We come in as a pure being into this world, and we land in a particular family, and the family's got some kind of stuff going on with it. You're either a first child or a second child or an unwanted child or a wanted child or something or other. And then you go to school and you hear history, his story, not her story. You hear all this kind of stuff, Yes. None of it's about you. And it's all other people's ideas. Well, who writes history? It's the people that won battles, with violence, and we learn all this crazy stuff about life. So we're encouraged, you don't know what you're doing. You're going to school to find out, and by the time you finish school, go and get a job, and pay off your debts and stuff. And you're never given that chance to remember, actually it's you that's living this life. And, depending on what country you're born in, you're given a religion and you're given all these social things. And maybe you grow up in a Republican household or a Democrat household. And it's like, it goes on and on and on. And we're, particularly in America, I mean, it's a 24-hour-a-day go business. We don't really have much time to sit down and wonder, what am I doing here, and what's the deal? And by the time you realize it's all over, you've gone through the births, marriages, and deaths, and it's, the biggest regret people have on their deathbed is that they lived a life according to somebody else's precepts. There's a well-documented stories about this of people in their last days, being interviewed. What did you do with your life? And they say, I screwed up. I lived everybody else's life for them. I didn't live my own life. I didn't have enough time for fun. I didn't play enough. I didn't celebrate enough with my friends. I never really stopped and inquired what I was doing here. I missed the whole thing. So human design gives you that opportunity. Get with it, be you. That's what you came here for.
I love the way that you speak about this. One of the things that hit me the strongest was when you were talking about, like, as young people, we experience and are told, probably both, that we don't know what we're doing, and that's why we go to school. And when I heard you say that, I was just like, oh, and school does not help with that. Like, that is, school does many things. Having been a classroom teacher for many years, it's I don't want to throw it under the bus completely, but it doesn't do that. It doesn't help us understand who we are or what we're here to do. It doesn't. That's not its design. Its design is to kind of get everyone operating on a similar playing field.
Yeah.
And tick off the check marks, and then inside the container, those of us who are there do the best we can with what's happening. I think a lot of powerful stuff happens there. But this transmission that you're talking about, it's almost like the image that I had just now is like, God has a transmission to maybe we left a recording before we came into these bodies for ourselves, And all we have to do in order to find that is this inner work, this personal development. For me, human design has been incredibly helpful, and I know that other people find other pathways. But to do that inner reflection isn't hard, but no one will force us to do it. We have to choose it for ourselves.
Yeah. Well, that's why I call human design a self-remembering device, because the only practice is to be aware of how your vehicle operates.
Yes.
Literally to watch how it operates and allow yourself to be steered into things that really work for you.
I've had a couple of people who were really passionate about human design, and I think I'm pretty passionate about it, but they're more so, say things that to me felt like, I don't know if it's like a cop-out or just like a little victim energy, like, well, this is my design, therefore I can't do, like, I'll never have, like, I have the gate of struggle, and I'll always struggle with this thing. Like, I'll never have relationships that really satisfy me because of my design. Like, this kind of making an excuse for something that's making them miserable.
Yeah, and I hear that a lot, Jessie. And, we didn't come here to be victims. And there are no good designs, there are no bad designs. It's just, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to live in a low-level frequency? And just put your cross on your back and be miserable? Or are you going to up-level yourself? Are you going to go for a higher frequency? And every single moment in time gives us that opportunity to take the higher frequency, to get out of the habits. That's one of the things I do when I mentor people with human design. I know their design. We have bi-weekly calls, and I give them exercises and just say, okay, here's your habitual way of doing this in your life. Here's what your human design is saying. Try it.
Yes.
And we meet 2 weeks later, and I say, okay, what happened? They say, my goodness, you wouldn't believe what happened. All of a sudden, all these old patterns, and I was just about to take the old road, and then I remembered, hang on a minute, try the other one. And they said the effect was amazing. All of a sudden, I felt free and able to operate in my own life, and it was incredible.
Yes.
So that's, and it's just that simple thing. It's a self-remembering thing. You've just got to be aware of the places in your life where you make habits, you follow everybody else's trails, like following the sheep in front of you, like we've all been taught, be a good sheep, and all of a sudden you break out of the rut and you start realizing, hang on a minute, I came here to be me. This is my life. This is how, let's give this one a try. So yes, massive revelations.
Yeah, I'm realizing as I'm listening to you that I think this is why human design has helped me connect with other people in a different way than like astrology. Like, I grew up reading my Leo chart, whatever, in the newspaper. I enjoyed that, and occasionally I would read Sag because my mom was a Sag, and Taurus because my dad was a Taurus, whatever. But I never felt like I got any more two things. I never felt like I really got any more deep intuitive information about the other people in my life, or maybe even about myself. And I often had the experience that when I read someone else's little and I'm not trying to knock astrology either, but like in the newspaper version, I was like, well, that could describe me too, and I'm not that thing. You know, like it was easy to just feel like it was all blurred. And as I'm listening to you, I'm realizing like, oh, but human design is based on the principle that we're all different, that we're not sheep, we're not here to be the same.
Yes.
And as a result of that, I feel like it's working. Like that premise, that foundational understanding is a part of the transmission, so that even if someone only gets a reading about themselves and never studies anyone else's chart, that they are still, in working with the principles and material, they're embedded in that is their understanding that they are different from others. And for me, this sounds so obvious, but I got to tell you, this is one of my biggest takeaways, that like my husband and I are built differently. So the way that I do things is not ever going to be the way he does things, ever. Right. He's never going to orient in the kitchen the way that I do. He's never going to pack the dishwasher the way that I do. Like it's not going to happen. And to really help me not just acknowledge that we're different, but to not make one better or worse just because it's familiar to me. For me, this is a very human principle of humility and compassion and, acceptance and diversity. But I'm naming it because human design really helped me learn that and get curious about that. Like, ooh, how do you work? You know, what's going on there?
Yeah.
And again, the people that I have spoken to about this, whether it's just for a moment or for hours, are so freed by the revelations that they have about themselves and allowing themselves to be different, allowing themselves to be like, it's just happening in the moment that I'm like, oh, that's a big part of knowing who we are, is knowing that we're different, accepting that we're different, getting playful and having fun with how we're different.
Well, yes, Jessie. I mean, that is the first principle with human design, is recognizing, wow, this is me, you know, this is me, this is how it works. Oh, and goodness, you know, and all this time I was wondering, you know, am I on the wrong track? Am I being crazy? Whatever. No, this is me and my uniqueness. So first thing is self-acceptance. The second thing that follows very quickly is self-love. And here's the thing, you know, when you're in love with yourself and in love with your life, you start radiating. And then you're actually in a position to be in love with other people and other things in your world. And then you realize, my goodness, we're surrounded by this nature, and how amazing is that? You know, and we start realizing all this thing, the whole game in town here is love. And it all starts from inside. You've got to be able to recognize and appreciate yourself. And that's exactly where human design puts you. It puts you right on the map in your own life, and it gives you the clues to keep remembering. Play it according to your own nature, your own unique nature. Be in touch with that, be in love with that, and see what happens. And what I found, you know, like you were saying, maybe only one person in a group or in a family understands their design. They don't go about asking everybody else about their design. But if one person in the family knows their design, what we found is it has a ripple effect into everybody else. You know, because the one person is living in accordance with their own nature, all of a sudden, everybody else starts interacting with them according to that correctness in their nature. And so whole families, whole communities, whole schools start changing when just, you know, even one person starts living in attunement with their own life. And that thing is that it is all about attunement. You know, I've read the charts of all kinds of fully realized beings. And one of the things with human design is it shows us exactly what our conscious side is, you know, what we come to be aware of living out in our life. But it also shows everything that we've inherited genetically. And we can see at least 4 generations back, whether we've ever met these people or not, the genes are written into our human design. And so people that are fully realized, you know, they've got this unconscious side, they've got this genetic input from their ancestors, they've got the conscious side, which is very obvious to everybody. But the thing is, they've come to this place of complete acceptance of all of it, all of their features, all of the input. And, you know, it's literally an attunement to who they are and where their life is taking them. And it's just the most beautiful thing to watch when people get this.
It's very powerful to hear you talk about that, because, you know, probably everyone that's watching this is someone who is interested in self-realization, right? My community is very spiritually focused and personally development focused. And, so when you say that word, I think everyone listening to you is going to know what you're talking about. Yeah. And what stands out to me is that you're not talking about self-realization as a form of transcendence. You're talking about self-realization as a form of embodied acceptance,
reality,
which is huge. It's huge. And now I'm also making the connection about what you were saying about how timely this is, because I actually talk a lot in my work about, because I work with money and spirituality, why now the spiritual teaching needs to include money, include matter, instead of just let's go to the caves and meditate until we bliss out, And in my mind, this is just my theory, my working theory, there was a time, and maybe still is a time and place for that kind of renunciation and retreat. But the demand is here in 2020 to integrate, right? Our material forms are getting so expanded so quickly that if we don't have the consciousness of all of who we are, it really shows up in a different way. And when we're able to bring that spiritual consciousness, higher vibration, whatever language we want to use, that connection to source into our material lives, that's actually when our service, everything you're talking about, this is just another way of saying that. And I'm curious what your take is on that. Like, because you've also had some experience of like stepping out of society and going into retreat mode. And now you're in a full blown, like you are service embodied, and it sounds like you're living the most joyful, expanded life. Like, how do you think about the relationship between that sort of spiritual retreat or renunciation, or kind of, going to live on the ashram or step out of the material kind of conventions, and what you're doing now, which to me is the epitome of integrated conscious living?
Well, let's just say I was a bit of a slow learner with this. I mean, as I told you, I became the mechanical engineer and did all that stuff. And then I had this moment where I was told, hang on a minute, that's over. Something very different is going to happen. It was my great good fortune at that time to be in the company of Osho. And this was in India while he was there. And then he moved to Oregon. If anyone doesn't remember, he's the guru that had 93 Rolls Royces, all exactly the same model. And, that was his idea of a joke. And then he went back to India, and I was there when he left in 1990. And so I was, all the time, his whole thing was meditation, get with it, be yourself, be honorable, be living in your heart. And find out what that's all about. Be in the singularity of your heart. Get out of the split mind stuff. His teachings were amazing in that he was a professor of philosophy. He basically could win any debate with anybody by arguing either side of the same argument. And so basically he said, look, here's this side of life, here's the other side, here's the opposing view of it. What's your point of view? What's the truth for you? What is it that's really moving you? So I lived in his company for about 11 years. And then when he took off, when he left, I was out into the world and I started reading for people. I started, that became my livelihood. And I found that in reading for people that I had some gifts that came out. It was a natural, easy thing for me. And when human design came into my life, it was an obvious thing. This is something I'm here to work with. I knew right away when I saw my chart, this is the system the man in India had told me. So I have to say, in some way, I was guided to, in the first place, begin the search for myself. And as I say, I was a very slow learner. But,
what do you mean when you say that? Because you don't sound slow.
Yeah, well, there's quite an acceleration going on these days, Jessie, I have to say. I have to say, I've been gifted in doing all these sessions with people. And as much as I've been able to indicate for people what it is that's going on in their lives, I've been given a massive reflection of what's going on in my life at the same time. It's a two-way street. And I've learned enormously about human design. I mean, the third book we've written, the Book of Destinies, which I wrote with my partner, Carola, it's basically the story of humanity. There are 192 different life themes to be lived out on this planet. We each have one for our lifetime. You know, in this book, everybody's story is in this book. So, you know, I've been exposed to finding out all the 192 elements, ways in which people live their life. And so, yes, I mean, I won't say it's always been straightforward and dead easy. You know, there's been times where I've really been wondering, what are you doing, Chetan? You know, it's like, are you totally screwed up or what, you know? But these days, I have to say, there's recognition around the world. I have students all over the world who just love interacting with me. You know, I used to be very serious, and these days I laugh as much as I can, and I feel it's my work to get people to laugh.
Yes.
Because the times are changing. You know, you say about this thing of retreating, and I have to say, for those 11 years in Osho's company, to the major part of it, I was in retreat. I was literally reflecting on myself. But Osho was very clear. He said, you know, that is an old way. You cannot be broke and be spiritual. That is the old way. You know, would go around the place with a begging bowl. That is finished. He said, you have to do meditation in the marketplace these days. You have to be meditative, and you bring that into the marketplace, which involves dealing with the material world. Not just dealing with it, but being successful. And if you're broke, you cannot afford to be spiritual. You don't have time or place for it. So this is what I carry with me now. Is yeah, it's, you know, it was a huge understanding of things, that the Piscean way, if you will, is all about that. You know, you give your power away to everybody else, you know, the king, the priest, whoever. And these days we're done with that, you know, and this year, 2020 coming up, very, very clear markings that we are out of the Piscean age and into the doorway of the Aquarian age, which is an age of personal responsibility. And the age of being a victim and blaming everybody from, you know, the landlord to God, that's finished. You know, there's nobody else's fault. You're here to live your own life on your own terms, and that's the deal.
Feels so good. Feels so good hearing you say that. I love hearing you speak about this. I want to also thank you. The way that you speak about Osho, I think, is important at this time, also in part because I think there's more to gain from his teachings. And he, you know, my most recent installment with his work outside of our relationship was the documentary on Netflix, which didn't actually really represent his work at all. It represented the drama, and it was a great story, and I think they did a beautiful job. But what was missing was actually anything about what he taught, or what he was really standing for, what he was about, and the devotion of of his students. You know, there was a little sliver of that, but like mostly it was just about the drama. And when I hear you speak about him, I just feel the clean, pure truth of what you experienced with him, what he was speaking, what he was teaching, and I just have deep trust in that. So I'm really grateful that you brought that in today.
Well, you know, in the early days when he started initiating people, this is somebody that got enlightened at the age of 21, got full realization, didn't tell anyone about it, you know, just carried on living his life. But when he started initiating people, you know, there were people that were questioning the Tibetan Buddhists and stuff, like, who is this man? You know, what's he doing? And they would say, you know, this is the greatest incarnation since Gautama Buddha. And this man is here, you know, to guide humanity into the Aquarian age. Now, everyone's going to say, well, you know, maybe my teacher or my guru or my whatever is better than Osho was. And what was he doing with all those Rolls Royces? And, you know, what about all that scandal and stuff that happened in Oregon that Netflix, you know, in the wild, wild country was going on about? I was in that community from beginning to end, you know, in the wild, wild country. I mean, you know, the movie, you know, the documentary was kind of interesting. I met some of these wackos, you know, that were giving interviews from the outside looking in. They had no idea what we were doing inside that ranch. We were building a city. We started in this thing called the Big Muddy Ranch. you know, which anytime there was a drop of rain on the ground, all of a sudden you were staggering through mud. You know, it was a totally devastated ranch land. And we built a city. We built a city with hotels and shopping malls and the whole business. Airport, you know, we had our own airline. We had all kinds of things going on there. Totally constructive, totally positive. And yet it drew all this negativity. And, you know, Netflix shows a good bit of that. People just didn't understand. You cannot understand something looking from the outside in. You've got to be in the inside looking out. And again, you know, we come back to human design. Human design is all about looking from the inside to the outside. You know, what is my story? What am I experiencing here? That's the whole deal. And what I'm experiencing, what am I doing about it? What's my body, what's my sensations telling me to play with?
It's very important. The work that you do is so important. I'm kind of, this is a surprise for it to come up for me, but it's such a good topic. I'm interested for you to share a little bit, because a lot of what we talk about on this YouTube channel is sales, and sales from a really grounded, service-based, and even spiritual place. And I have noticed, being on the receiving end of your sales process, that's a strong word for it, but I'm curious, based on what you know about people, how you relate to the concept of sales and inviting or offering something to respond to. Like, how does your understanding of human design affect your sales? That's the synthesized version of the question.
Well, there's only one of me and one of Carola. So, you know, there's only so many readings we can do for people. So we put together, apart from the books, we put together reports for people. So people can go on the website, they can get their free report, they can get a comprehensive report if they pay a few dollars for it. And it, you know, for some people that's enough. They, you know, they're given the ground rules, they're shown this is how it works for you, go for it. Other people, they want to know a little bit more. So there are some people that want to join in our trainings, and we do all kinds of different trainings. You know, we teach the whole system to people, soup to nuts, everything you want to know about human design. And we also do business success training for people. We do relationship training for people. And, you know, I travel all over the world giving classes. We both do from time to time, you know, getting people to understand more about, you know, how to live their life authentically. So in terms of sales, you know, people have different ways of approaching us. I'm aware that some people, they are absolutely clear. They've come to a roadblock in their life, just like I did in 1979. They need to know how to get through that roadblock and out the other side. They will do anything. You know, they'll come and mentor with me or coach with Carola, and, you know, they will find their way through. So we're very particular. You know, we look at people's design, we look at the intention behind how they approach us. Are they ready to make a jump? Or are they just wanting knowledge? And to me, there is this huge difference between knowledge, libraries, internet's full of that stuff, and knowing. And the people that come that want to know, those are the ones I really want to work with. You know, and, you know, they're just earnest and clear about it. So there's that huge difference. There's a lot of people that play with human design, just they want the knowledge. So great, you know, have the books, do that stuff, read all about it, you know, and get the next book after that. But the ones that really want to transform, well, you know exactly who I'm talking about, Jessie. There are people that will do anything to make that jump.
Yes.
To come to the new place. So in terms of sales, you know, I have to be a little clear who it is I really want to work with and who's actually really intent on making a dramatic transformation in their life and stepping up into their highest frequency. You know, those are the ones those are the ones I have the greatest interest for. And I'm happy to say, you know, in the classes, that the online classes and the coaching I give online, we're getting a lot of people now, and it's quite clear. They've realized the game's up. They cannot carry on doing things the same old way. They've got to make a transformation happen. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It took me in a different direction, and I love it. My next question is, do you decide things about people based on their chart without either without knowing them or potentially in opposition for something that they're saying? Like, do you ever have the experience that someone's like, I want change, and you look at their chart and you're like, no, they don't. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, is there ever do you ever have the experience of the chart saying one thing and the person saying another?
Well, always.
And
Yes.
then which do you listen to? How do you navigate that?
Basically, I see if I can get them on the page. I see if I can get them on their chart. And, you know, it becomes evident very quickly whether they want to get on the chart or not. I mean, I tell you a story. You know, I was in Turkey one time doing a reading for a couple, and they had a child you might describe as a problem child. You know, the child would just cause a nuisance wherever he went. They didn't speak any English, so I had a translator, and the translator, you know, I'd look at the chart about this child, and I'd look at their charts, and I started talking. I said, this is what I see. And all of a sudden, this couple start talking to each other in Turkish, and you know, I turned to the translator, what are they talking about? And they're saying, you know, they'd been to all these experts, the school experts, the psychologists, the doctors, everybody, and they couldn't work it out. And they were talking to each other and saying, how does this man who we've just met, who's looking at these pages here, be able to tell us exactly what's going on and give us really salient ideas of what to do about it? You know, it's huge, this thing. Yes. It breaks through all kinds of misconceptions that we have about life.
What is your vision for where the world will go in terms of human design?
Well, you know, there's a bunch of dinosaurs that are running the world. You know, there's this thing of making something great again, you know, like we can step backwards. You know, my father was a conservative. I love the man, you know, but when I think of conserve, I think of something with a lot of sugar in it to preserve it.
It's so
you know,
good.
And it's like, you know, this whole attitude, we got to step backwards, you know, we got to go, ain't happening. The world is accelerating. I mean, you just get people like Greta Thunberg come out on the planet, you know, and start railing at these fossils.
Yes.
You know, and these dinosaurs, and, you know, whether she's right or wrong. To me, the fact that a child comes out and challenges the status quo, and a lot of people recognize this, whether she's right or wrong. My whole thing is, you know, if with a bit of luck, she will spur people into finding the next energy resource. You know, the thing that doesn't need more than you can carry's worth of gasoline to put in your car to make it go anywhere.
Yes.
You know, you just have a little thing this size, and, you know, you can do anything you want with it. So
good. Beautiful. Beautiful. Gosh, I mean, I feel like we could go on for hours, but I also know that this is a lot for people. I think one of the things that I would love for people to hear from you is just if they're feeling the resonance, what's the best next step for them? If they want to learn more, if they want to go deeper, if they want to meet you.
So the easiest thing of all is go on our website and get your free report. Right? The website is called Human Design for Us All, spelled out, humandesignforusall.com. First page, you'll have an opportunity to get your free report. Start there. If it catches your attention, get the comprehensive report. If that doesn't do it for you, start looking about getting a reading with me. See if we can schedule something. If it really gets to you, join our training. The training there's nothing quite like it on the planet. There's all kinds of people teach human design, but I guarantee they don't teach it in such a thorough way that we do. And as I say, I encourage every student, you start learning about this, you start practicing, right? You start exercising what it is you've learned, and you start getting reflections back from people. You say something, what are they telling you back? Are they giving you stories and experiences? Wow, you really described that so beautifully. So humandesignforusall.com. There's also the books. I mean, this book here, this is now in 14 languages, this human design book. It's got a beautiful cover on it.
It's so good.
But it's got beautiful contents in it. I'm still in love with it 10 years after the event. And there's 2 other books as well, the Book of Lines, the Book of Destinies. They're all on our website. So tremendous resources here.
Yeah, yeah. And I just want to encourage everyone, although maybe Chetan, there's a revision of this suggestion, but for me, it has been so empowering to trust my attraction. So if you're feeling that like leaning in feeling, to trust that and pay attention to that. I know that there's a lot of people that are going to feel that. Maybe not everyone has that responding generator piece, but for the 70-some% of us that do, to trust that and lean in. And also, if it doesn't feel that way, to trust that too. You know, for me, I had many opportunities to go deep into human design, and I didn't take them until I met Chetan. And then it was like, oh, this is not some like heebie-jeebie, I don't know, like loosey-goosey hippie thing. This is like, this man is the real deal. So you guys know that now from direct experience.
Well, let's just say, you know, everything operates in a frequency. In human design, we have a calculation that delivers 26 frequencies. You know, we are held together in frequency. We have a unique frequency according to these 26 different things that accord to our makeup the moment we're born and the genetic input that we have. So the thing about it is, you know, when you have a tuning fork and you put it down and there's a similar vibration in the atmosphere, it starts vibrating. It's the same thing with us. You know, in human design, we actually describe how to recognize that vibration, that something's matching with you, some body is matching with you. There's a harmonic frequency on some level. And that's what life is all about, is being drawn into situations where there's a frequency match. You know, we all have our favorites once we tune into our own nature and we stop going along with everybody else's suggestions. You're supposed to do this and you've got to do that. And you start resonating in your own frequency. And then we are playing music with each other.
I am one of those people, of course, who resonates with you so strongly. It's very powerful being in your presence, Chetan, and just feeling that it just feels like the solution is here. Like whatever problem our world has, individually we have, like the solution is here. That transmission feels so strong. You haven't even really used those words, but that's one of my biggest takeaways from this conversation.
Yeah, there's a transmission that happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I love you. I'm so grateful for you for taking the time to be here, and just really encourage everyone to go get your free report, check it out, feel what it's like for you, go as deep as you want to go. The rabbit hole is endless. And
but the point is to find your own truth before you dive down it. So thank you so much, Jessie.
Yes.
It's always a delight hanging out with you one way or another. Thank you so much.
Be well, everyone. Enjoy the journey.